Fire Away tackles burning questions and hot topics in Canadian employment law, human resources, and dispute resolution. Hosted by Rudner Law, Fire Away is your go-to source for legal insight on the world of work. So whether you are an employee or an employer, a lawyer or an HR pro, let's ignite the conversation and get into today's episode. Here's your host, employment lawyer, mediator, and founder of Rudner Law, Stuart Rudner.
Welcome to episode 91 of Fire Away. Today I am very excited to be joined by author and former VP of U.S. Delivery Operations in the U.S. at UPS, Noel Massie. Noel, thank you so much for agreeing to join us.
Hey, Stuart, thanks for having me. I look forward to our conversation over the next half hour or so with you and your listeners.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. And so just, I guess, by way of a quick background, you live in Illinois. As we watch you walk through your house with your camera, you've obviously got a lovely home there, as well as one in California. So I'm very jealous. But from what I've seen, you retired about 6 years ago from UPS, but it looks like you're active on several boards. You teach, you mentor, you coach, and you've written a book. Is that,
yes.
that about right?
That's all very, very accurate. So, as you mentioned a moment ago, my last role in the organization was vice president of U.S. delivery operations for UPS, meaning the 180,000 or so employees that we have in the delivery operation of UPS and the 12 to 15,000 leadership level employees. My responsibility was guiding and coordinating that for the organization, the management committee, and the CEO. And COO, of course, in my last role, but I had 5 business units as a president prior to that. I was born and raised in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, Oakland, California, just to put that out there. And the way I ended up in UPS was as a college student. I was an electrical engineering student, San Jose State University. UPS was a means to an end for me to get my education. Because candidly, when I started an organization, in the late 70s, the wages for an inside employee were exactly the same per hour as they were for a full-time person. So you can make a pretty good penny. And I was able to pay for my tuition by working at UPS. And then as I was about to graduate in 1980, the organization asked me not to leave, and I was promoted. I was promoted into a frontline, in the trenches supervisor position. And I never forgot that experience. Of course, I rose through the organization to become a president, but the most formative aspect of leadership development for me was when I was promoted as a new supervisor. So I wrote a book for a couple of reasons to coach, train, and develop the individual at that level of leadership. And some of it had to do with my experience as a president, where the turnover of baby boomers and Gen X we're really leaving the workplace at a very rapid pace for retirement. So the amount of individuals we were promoting well exceeded our ability to coach, develop, and train them effectively. So what do you get? You get derailment. Derailment happens for the newly promoted leader in the first couple of years. But more importantly, and you didn't promote them because they didn't have potential and you wanted them to be successful. So more importantly, there's a lot of residual that comes off of individuals when they are on the front line in the trenches. That's where the culture of an organization is executed. Culture is built at the top, Stuart, but it's executed at the bottom. And so many organizations don't understand that. They don't understand that you can sit in a boardroom or a conference room with the CEO and craft all these elegant things, but if they don't live and breathe through the eyes of the supervisor and managers, the flesh and bone of the organization, they don't live. And so my book is tactical in some way and value-based in another. And it's called Congrats, You've Been Promoted, the essential guide for helping new leaders and their team succeed. And it released in June, and I'm really happy with what's happened with it at this point.
So it is literally hot off the presses. But yeah, I love the title. I love that quote that you just mentioned, which I am going to steal from you, although I will do my best to give you credit for it. And you're one of those increasingly rare people who spent your entire career at one company. I can tell you informally, like, I deal with a lot of people who are, coming and going from organizations. I keep track of the longest tenure that I see. The longest tenured person I saw at one company was 48 years. But you're getting, or you were close to that range. So let's talk a bit about the book, because it's, congrats, you've been promoted. You had a bunch of promotions and clearly were very successful. But I see it, and clearly you've seen it, a lot of situations where people are promoted, but I don't know about UPS in particular, but a lot of companies I see, they promote people either because they've been there a long time, or because they're really good at what they do, but not necessarily because they have leadership qualities or potential. So sometimes they're promoting the wrong people. Sometimes they're promoting the right people, but they don't give them any support. So you've talked a bit about this, but what really prompted you to write the book?
Well, leadership is not rocket science, but it is a science. And there are things, and very important things, that someone who is promoted to be a leader needs to understand. Now, having said that, whether it's a donut shop or a Fortune 50 company like UPS, the one universal thing that happens around the world in all organizations is someone will be leading the front line. Most of the books today are for CEOs, boards, and I was a chairman of the board of a number of boards. LA Chamber of Commerce, I was the chairman. I was proud of that, and we had about 3,500 members and 50 or so board members. And I was also chairman of the board of the Los Angeles Urban League, and and I've sat on a number of nonprofits. I'm on the Annenberg Foundation Investment Committee, one of the biggest foundation boards
Nice.
in the United States. And I sit on a couple other boards, Chapter One US, where we focus on second grade literacy. The point being, and me saying all that isn't to give, high fives to myself on that stuff. What I'm saying is, I've been in a lot of theaters with leaders. And the one thing that happens, you mentioned it yourself already, is that when people are chosen to become a leader, generally it's because of the two things you identified. Tenure is a big one. Okay. And then work ethic being identified as a positive trait. So we see Stuart, he works hard, he's reliable, he's been on the docks, or he drives a forklift, drives a truck, whatever you want to call it. And we love his work ethic. And so the owner of the business goes, "Hey, Stuart, we're going to make you the leader." And everything stops at that point. The owner doesn't understand that if Stuart is to be a successful leader, then Stuart needs to be coached how to do that. That's not an automatic. What happens at the next level in any management, I'll tell you, in any management position, what happens when you go from employee to supervisor is a challenge. The same thing happens when you go from supervisor to manager. I've done it all. Manager to division manager, where I had, 5,000 people. Division manager to operations manager, and operation manager to president. And I went through all of those levels of leadership, and every one of them was different. Every one of them came with a different set of requirements than the one prior, even though they were leadership positions. So the toughest transition by far
I gotta
is
tell you,
that
you took the words out of my mouth. I was about to ask you which one the hardest was.
the toughest one by far is the first one, where you were an employee, and now it's like, Stuart, we love what you're doing, and you're working with this group of people, and you're working with Mary and Sam and John. You know what? Yesterday, you were on a softball team with them.
Yeah.
You guys were on a softball team together. And then tomorrow, the owner said, you're going to be their boss. So now you're Sam's boss. And you and Sam were playing softball together. That's a real thing. That's more common than it isn't. And so now, how do you do that? And the behaviors, the intentional leadership paradigm that needs to shift in Stuart, if he's not taught that, it won't just emerge. My book is about teaching Stuart that. So part one of the book is value-based.
Okay.
I talk about the importance of integrity as the first value equation piece we discussed. And I talk about how Stuart should establish immediately with Sam and John and Mary, his new team, the terms and conditions of value-based leadership. So you think about when you buy an airline ticket, Stuart, You have to check a
Right.
box. You accept the terms and conditions. You get a warranty. Check the box. Terms and conditions. Go to a
But nobody ever
concert.
reads those.
Yeah, nobody, and that's exactly right. So let me tell you what happens with people. Every person has terms and conditions. Every human being. If I were to say to you right now, Stuart, I want you to write down 5 non-negotiable things to be in a relationship or work for a company that are your terms and conditions. Something as simple as, well, getting paid, the term and condition. I'm not a volunteer. Something as much as, I didn't sell you my dignity. I expect to be treated with dignity. I expect to be given respect. I expect to X, right? Not to be asked to do things that lack integrity. I expect honesty. If I ask you to write down, you have 5. You have 5. Everybody has them. And I do this in workshops, and they write them down. And I go, okay, so now you're the leader. How do your people know that those are your terms and conditions? And how do you know what theirs are? They don't. So
Right.
intentional leadership means I just took over a group, happy to be your leader. I look forward to meeting each one of you individually, which I talk about in the book. You don't meet groups, you meet people. You don't meet groups, you meet people. So I tell a
Mhm.
new leader, the first thing you have to do is, number one, establish at least the important terms and conditions of the relationship. You know what? I'm happy to be your leader. And let me tell you a few things about myself. Integrity is really important to me. And in all things we do, integrity will be first, right? If it's not right, we're not doing it. If there's something you think doesn't make sense, I want to know about it. But as your leader, integrity matters.
Mhm.
Ethics. And ethics to me, team, is the honorable conduct towards others. And our team, we will be ethical. We will display honorable conduct towards others. And the fact of the matter is I'm going to display it to you. And it's setting the tone for the relationship. And when new leaders do that, things get way better quick. And so I talk about ethics, integrity, establishing trust, because trust is not, it's like if I meet you, like we just met recently, and I go, well, no, do you trust Stuart? I go, well, no, I don't know Stuart. I don't distrust him.
I'm
Okay.
a lawyer, so I assume you'll trust me.
Right. Hey, I don't know now. Hey, so in any event, but I don't distrust you. The point here is that people who go, well, build trust with your team. You know what? This is how you build trust. You tell your team that you will keep your word on everything you say to them. That's how you start the process. You keep your word. You say it. It's not implied. You can't imply that I'm going to keep my word. You have to say it. That in our team, word matters. Keeping our words important. I'll keep mine to you. But here's what's important, team. If you communicate to me that we're correcting something or whatever it is, I need your word that what you say to me is truthful and accurate. And these are our terms and conditions. Now, what that does is it holds everyone accountable, especially the new leader, especially the person who's saying those things. And it works. I'm not being idealistic here. I'm talking about what I've lived and I understand it. And so in the book, part 2 is the how to, right? All the stuff I just said is great,
Right.
right? But how do you do it? How do you do it? So part 2 of the book is broken into tactics. In part 2, I teach the new leader and the business owner and whoever wants to read it the proper way to train a person. What is that? What is the proper way to train a person to drive a forklift? 7
Right.
steps of effective training works. There's a technique. It's called the 7 steps. Step 1
Okay.
through 7. The 7 effective steps of training. And it takes the reader through a process, a structure. So think about this. If I said, Stuart, I'm going to teach you, get in the car and I'm going to teach you how to drive through an oil slick, right? And the first
Right.
time we go through, I'd say, okay, and I'm going to stay with you on this until we learn how to drive through this oil slick.
Okay.
Well, and we do it 20 or 30 times. Let me tell you what happens when you see it for real in real life. It's not new. You have some idea of what to do about it. My
Mhm.
techniques in chapter 2 are exactly that. They say, you're going to run into oil slicks. Let me tell you the proper way to navigate them. The 7 steps of effective training is 1. The 4x5 method. It's a conflict resolution. It's a discussion process. There's 4 points of view. There's 5 approaches. 4 points of view start with the persons. That's the strongest point of view anyone has, is their own. The second point of view I talk about is the supervisors. The third point of view is the companies. The fourth point of view is the customers, not because it's the least important. As a matter of fact, it's the most important. And so when a supervisor is talking to an employee, they have to decide, okay, what point of view will have the highest degree of influence on Stuart? Because leadership is one thing and one thing alone, Stuart. It's the ability, and this is important. Leadership is the ability to influence the behavior of a group or an individual without coercion. That's what it is. You are influencing their behavior. The coach of the hockey team is influencing the behavior of the players by coaching them. The business world is no different. You are influencing. So in order to influence, you need to have skills to do it. The 4x5 method is aimed exactly at that. And in the model, I also talk about things like motivational and formative feedback. What is formative feedback? It forms skills. Motivational enhances positivity. It motivates the employee, right? And they have to be delivered in a ratio of 4 inputs of positive inputs to 1 formative input. Like if I want you to do something, I need to acknowledge the positive things you do. And then only then will you listen to the one I want you to get better at. So that's what part 2 of the book contains, some of the things in it. Obviously, that's not all of it, but that just gives your listeners some idea.
Clearly, you could talk about this for a much longer time, and we may have to have you back to do that. But I was going to ask you as well. I noticed a reference to the best principle for discussions with employees and keeping them focused and positive. So, what's the best principle?
So, the best principle, the best way for me to and I love metaphors. I actually have a chapter in the book about the use of metaphors and why they work in discussions, right? Because they disarm people, right? You take people out of the moment, and I won't get into that, but it's a really powerful tool to create influence, is the use of metaphors. But the best principle is a frame. So if I took a frame with no picture in it and hung it on the wall, okay, the best principle is the frame I just hung on the wall. Inside of the best principle, I would put the 4x5 method. Inside of the best principle, I would put the 7 steps of effective training. Inside of the best principle, I would put daily messaging techniques to use with your team. The best principle is a frame, and it stands for the B, be clear, always be clear in communication with people. Why are we here? Stuart, we are here so that I can teach you how to drive a forklift. You've bid on the job, you won the job. We are here so that I can teach you how to drive a forklift. There are 37 steps in the training method to learn how to drive the forklift. So why are we here, Stuart? And then I'd say, be clear. We're here. I would ask you that, and you tell it back to me. And if you didn't, I'd do it again. Stuart, we're here. So I train you to drive a forklift. In that process are 37 steps in order for you to certify. Expect the best. Stuart, you bid on this job. I really know you want the job. And you know what? I know you're very capable of accomplishing this task. So I'm going to do everything I can to help you get this job. Expect the best. Stick to the objective. Stuart, we're training on the forklift, and Stuart starts to talk about last night's hockey game. Nope. Stuart, we're here to learn how to drive. Stick to the objective. Make sure that Stuart learns step 1 before he goes to step 2. Step 2 before step 3. Step 3 before step 4. Stick to the objective. And if step 4 isn't right, you continue it until Stuart learns. You stick to it. You don't go sideways. If Stuart leaves the frame, you put him back in the frame. You don't let Stuart talk about the hockey game. You don't let Stuart start complaining about the company. Stick, and then test commitment. Did Stuart learn what was taught, right? Test commitment. And so I'd say, so Stuart, do you know now how to drive a forklift effectively? Okay. Stuart says, yes. No, thanks for training me. Okay. Now test commitment. Okay. So talk to me about the 37 steps to drive this forklift that we went through. And Stuart does that. And I go, so now, Stuart, here's the $64,000 question. Are you always going to use these methods when you're on that forklift? Anything other than yes isn't going to work. So, Stuart, you respond to me and I go, okay, now look me in the eye, Stuart. Give me your word. You'll stay with the training. Because people break promises. People break commitments. You know what they don't break, Stuart?
What's
Their
that?
word. If I ask you, if I tell you, look me in the eye, I go,
I like
Stuart, give
that.
me your word. Give me your word, Stuart. People don't break their word. They don't break their word. And so it's important to understand how to use language to
Yeah.
lead without coercion. Without coercion. That's really important. So the best
That's
principle,
great.
that's what the
Yeah.
best principle is. So whether you're training a person, having a discussion on conflict, no matter what it is, the best principle by being clear, expect the best, positive reinforcement, stick to the objective, don't allow wavering, test commitment, get the person to give you their word on this particular moment. It's a really effective tool to help you steer through all those other techniques.
That's great. I love that. And I'm going to refer your book to a number of people and clients I deal with, just if for nothing else, just for that. By the way, I got to tell you, you've clearly done your research because you know that I am likely to digress and talk about hockey. And somehow you know that I have both a Mary and a Sam on my team. So I'm not sure how you found that out. I give you credit for it. I was trying to think about Big Brother now. Anyways, kidding aside, I want to jump back to what you were saying. You said the hardest transition was going from frontline to supervisor,
Yes.
and I got to tell you, a lot of the files that come across our desk in our firm, that's the root cause. And I'll give you an
Yes.
example. It's probably going back about 7 years ago now, but we had a case where a client calls me up and I get a call from the director of HR. We got to fire this guy. He's been with us for 4 years, chronically late, 3 times a week he's coming in late, never gets any better. We thought he'd improve, but it's not happening. So we're going to get rid of him. Oh, and when I said, well, has he been disciplined, warned? Oh, yeah, supervisors say he's spoken to him at least 4 or 5 times. It's not proven. Great. So when I did a bit more digging, what basically happened was that his supervisor was formerly his colleague, one of the group. In that case, it was one of the guys because it was pretty
Yep.
much all
Normal.
guys.
Yep. Happens all the time.
So the supervisor gets promoted, or guy gets promoted to be supervisor, and no one trains him on things like how to have difficult conversations, how to impose discipline, how to manage performance. So what the supervisor would do is, if he noticed that this guy was coming in late, instead of having a formal discussion and making it clear this was a serious concern and warning him of potential consequences, what the supervisor would do was just manipulate things so that they would bump into each other in the break room. And while they were chit chatting, probably about the hockey game or something like that, he would say, "Oh, when I noticed that you came in a little bit late today, do you think you could try to get in on time?" And the guy would say, "Yeah, I'll try." And that was that.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening was HR met with the chronically late employee, who essentially said, "I had no idea this was a problem. If I knew that it was a concern, I would have made every effort. But from what I could tell, this was just chit chat. It wasn't a big deal because this
Yes.
supervisor was never trained on how to have those conversations and manage." So
Right. Right.
I guess I was hoping you might have some words of wisdom for that first step on how to train the new supervisor to have those difficult conversations.
Yeah, I essentially alluded to it when I talked about the 4x5 method. So I'll give you an example. We'll do that one, right? And this is some training that was normal, a walk in the park stuff, because that's one of the most common infractions in workplaces is reliability, right? So Stuart, you're the employee, I'm the supervisor, and this
Okay.
is what that supervisor would have learned, Stuart, under different circumstances. So Stuart's late. You're the late person. So Stuart, good morning. How you doing?
Doing great. How about you, Noel?
Not too bad. Hey, sure. I'd like to talk to you for a minute. Let's step over into my office if you don't mind. So that's intensity one. I'd like to talk to you. And supervisor point of view, I'd like to talk to you in my office for a moment. So you come in, right? Now I'm going to use employee perspective, and I'm going to use intensity one as my entry point. So Stuart, I have a question to ask. Before we get into what I want to talk about, right? You ever use Uber or Lyft or any of that kind of stuff, Stuart? You ever or
Yeah.
DoorDash or you ever use any of that stuff?
Yeah, pretty much use all of them.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So if you called an Uber to take you to the hockey game because you didn't want to drive with the traffic, blah blah blah, and Uber, they were supposed to show up at 5, but they showed up at 6 o'clock. Okay, and that was like one hockey game, and then you did it again, and they showed up at 6 o'clock again, Stuart. What would you do?
I would stop using Uber.
Okay, reliability matters to you. Is that what you're saying? What if DoorDash, you ordered food and you were having people over and they just didn't even show up with your food and you had to call again? And what would you do with DoorDash, Stuart?
Yeah, no, I'd be calling them and complaining.
So is reliability important to you?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, then so you're saying, and I need you to tell me. So reliability, Stuart, is important to you.
Yeah, reliability is really important.
Okay, well, Stuart, you've been late 4 times in the last couple of weeks. And you just said, what would you do with Uber if they kept being late? What would you do, Stuart?
Right. I'd be complaining and I'd probably stop using them.
Okay, so what makes you think our organization doesn't see you the way you see Uber?
Yeah, I didn't think it would be a big deal as long as I came in and did my 8 hours. I didn't think it would matter if it was sort of
So,
9 or
so
nine.
you're saying that Uber can show up at midnight even though you wanted them at 5. Well, you just told me that wouldn't work for you, right? So you're saying it matters. Bottom line, does it matter? Yes or no?
Yeah, that matters. Like I said, I didn't think it mattered for this work if as long as I did my 8 hours. So
Okay, well, I'm here to tell you it's the same thing. It's exactly the
okay.
same thing, right? It's exactly the same thing. And you need to really understand this personally that if you keep behaving like a late Uber, where are you telling the organization what are you telling the organization you want us to do? What are you saying to us, Stuart?
Yeah, I guess I never thought about it this way, but it sounds like what I'm saying is that I'm not really committed.
Okay, so finally, I would just like to say this, Stuart. So if you don't have employment with us in the future because you are behaving like that Uber, whose fault is that? Is that our fault?
No, that's on me now.
Who's that on?
I understand it. Yeah.
Okay, so I need you to understand your reliability belongs to you, not me, not the company. It belongs to you. So I'm gonna make a note of this conversation, Stuart, because this is important. And so the final thing I want you to do is look me in the eye, tell me you'll give me your word that this will get better, that you will be on time, period.
Yeah, you've got my word, Noel. Now I will definitely make sure it gets better.
Okay, so finally, and the last thing before we end this is, Stuart, you do a great job when you're here. You're one of my most positive employees. You do excellent work. Customers love you. So you have a lot to offer. Would you really want to jeopardize that because of a couple of minutes here and a couple of minutes there? I personally don't think you would. That's supervisor point of view. And so that's motivational feedback, giving 4 inputs and then me giving you a formative discussion. So, Stuart, thanks for the conversation. Today you're on truck number 8. See you.
Well,
That
thanks, Noel. I
supervisor
appreciate that.
that supervisor you're talking about with that law case wasn't taught that.
No,
That
and that was
we
I
did
got
that
it
in we did that in 4 minutes. We did
right.
that in 4 minutes. Okay. And any leader of a business or an organization that doesn't have 4 minutes to train their frontline people how to navigate tough shouldn't be surprised when that ends up on Stewart's desk as a law case.
That was great, Noel. I love the fact that you took me through the role play, and you're right; it's dead easy. And I don't know my perspective, anyways. The most important thing out of that whole scenario was the very beginning when you said, "Come into my office and let's talk," because you immediately changed it from we're just kind of chit chatting about how things are going in the hockey game last night to we're going
Absolutely.
to have a serious conversation.
That's right. I was setting the climate, the climate,
Yeah.
the climate. So the one thing leadership controls all the time is their own behavior. And that means that they have their finger on the thermostat and they get to make things 100 degrees or 20 degrees. That's a choice. That's a choice. And it rarely works at 100, right? When you have conversations, what's a comfortable temperature? 70, right? Conversations are better held when you are engaging the person without coercion and letting them convince themselves through metaphor, use of metaphor. I love the one I would use on people when they would say, well, I'm doing the best I can. The company standards are not okay. I'm doing the best I can. I'd say, okay, all right, so you're doing the best you can. So then if you hire a roofer and they say, well, we're like a 95% roofer. So every 5 shingles we lay are going to leak. I say, would you hire them? And they go, well, no. I go, so if you take your car to get tires put on, and they go, well, occasionally, we're like a 95% with bolts going on the wheels. So we're going to have, one tire out of 100 is going to flip off the car. Are you okay? They go, no. And I go, well, so why do you think our organization should be like that shop that has wheels flying off of it, or roofers that have tiles leaking? Why should our company be in this? And they never, the point, metaphors disarm the person. Metaphors make it not personal. I'm not attacking you, right? I give you a metaphor. And metaphor use in the book, I talk about it in the book a lot. And I talk about how conversations always go more positively, psychologically, because I said leadership's not a science, not rocket science, but it is a science. Not rocket science, but it is a science. And people that don't invest in developing themselves, because they own their own development, and owners and businesses that don't invest in developing their people should have problems. Okay, they should have problems. So I'm like, you're going to have them anyway. I had them all the time still, even with this stuff. But it helps minimize those things, and congruence matters. So if I give this book to Stuart and you read it, you own the company, right? And then you give it to your employee, your supervisor, and they read it. Now, what do you both have? You have congruence. You have congruence of thought, and congruence matters. You know that in our business, we're going to have hard days, long days, and tough days. But here's the day we're never having: the day that lacks integrity. We're never having that day. We're never having an unethical day. We're not having that day. We're not ever having a day where we treat people where we show favoritism to people. No, we run a fair workplace. We're not having that day. And congruence is important when you talk about leadership. It's really important that the team, and I had 12,000 supervisors, and even when as a president, I had 30,000 people and 2,000 managed people. Congruence was important from us to the employee and within our team around ethics, integrity, and accountability. And it worked because we didn't treat people unfairly, right? Favoritism was not allowed in the room, right? When favoritism would try to walk in the door, we would throw it out. We'd throw it out. Try to walk in the door, we kick it out. Nope. I don't care if Stuart has 30 years. He does the same level of work as a person with 3 years. That 30 years gets some preference on days off and vacation and blah, blah, blah. But not on how much work's getting done. Anyway.
Hey, so I got to ask you one follow-up question with that role play. And then as we said before, the time flies by, so we'll have to wrap it up soon. But let me ask you this. A lot of people are struggling with managing remote workforces. So your scenario, you and I bumped into each other in the lunchroom, and your first thing you said was, come to my office, we should chat. So let's assume now that you're managing me, but I'm remote. So the only way we talk is Zoom or phone calls. How do you do that transition from the friendly chit chat to the serious conversation?
I don't know. You and I have been talking for about 35 minutes. I think it's been working pretty well. I think you've understood everything I've had to say. I think that the emotional side of it's worked. I think that, as a matter of fact, remote work is generally white collar executive work, right? And if anything, you get to see the performance, their output, et cetera, et cetera. So you get to see what they do, right? But you and I've been talking for a while, and it's first of all, it's not the barrier is not remote workplaces. That's not what causes the issue. The issue is you have to care enough about development to make it important and planned. And once a month, I need to say, Stuart, we're going to have a development conversation. Write down what you'd like to talk about. And this isn't about me criticizing you. If I'm going to give you a formative coaching moment, you need to understand even Michael Jordan had a coach. Even Wayne Gretzky had a coach. Everyone, even the greats had coaches. Okay. You are not better than the greats. Okay. You get to have a coach. It happens to be me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do what coaches do. I'm going to acknowledge how you've improved in areas. And I'm going to talk about one thing I would like to see you work on as you develop your skills. But it's not going to be from a mantle of me criticizing you. Okay. That's where leaders and that's where individuals get lost in the force, is that they say, well, Stuart's not. Okay, well, then your job is to develop Stuart 2. Don't be telling me what he's not doing. I would say that to directors of HR, engineering. Understand, I had CFOs working for me. I didn't just let them get rid of people. Yeah, I'd be like, okay, Bobby's not doing, what do you want Bobby to do better?
Right.
So what I'm going to be Bobby. I'm going to be Bobby in this moment. Coach me on getting better at that. I'm Bobby, and you're my boss. Coach, and then okay, no, I get it. Right. And then we role play it, or so you can do it. You can do that remotely. Is my point.
Absolutely. I think you can. I see a lot of people struggle, but frankly, I think it's usually an excuse. Like they've just got to be deliberate and communicate exactly the way you just did. So.
You hit on a really important point. Excuses are for people who need them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's who they're for. An excuse is for a person who needs it. Because people that don't need excuses never reach into the excuse cabinet.
Yeah. No. And given my line of work, I see a lot of excuses, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. Oh, listen, I worked with a lot of labor attorneys in my life. Okay. A lot. So you guys have tough sled, no doubt. Tough. Yep.
Yeah, well, and I guess I should say, fortunately, there aren't a lot of leaders like you, because that's how we keep our workload pretty full.
Right, you probably go out of business. No, see, probably not. There's always someone out there willing to file a claim or a lawsuit or something, even when it's.
I'm not too worried, but I will hesitantly promote your book. Okay, kidding aside, I will wrap things up now. This was fantastic, Noel. So thank you. Just a great conversation. I love the way you took me through a role play. It was a lot of fun. So thank you again for coming on the show.
Hey, I really enjoyed the moment, especially speaking. I don't get to speak to labor attorneys too often, but I really enjoyed that particular side of it, because that's an important area. All kidding aside, in business, you don't go into business to have people, filing claims and claiming unfair things and blah blah blah. So. Hopefully your listeners gained something out of what I'm talking about, because I'm talking about it from having lived it. Number one, I lived it. I got it. I understand.
No, I'm sure anybody watching or listening will get a lot out of this. So before I let you go, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to find you?
Well, my website is Noel Massie, my whole name, NoelMassie.com. On there is a contact form. I'm on LinkedIn. And I'll accept the invitations that come that way. I'm on Instagram, but I'm on LinkedIn, and my assistant, Kayla Bozeman, KaylaBozman @gmail.com. Shoot her an email. She'll put us together. We can have a conversation, but there's a contact form. You fill it out. It goes straight to her. And we have offers for the book. It's on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. Simon & Schuster is the publishing house where the book is being distributed.
Perfect. And the book is called Congrats, You've Been Promoted. So I encourage everyone to check it out and to reach out to you. And Noel, thank you so much again.
Well, thank you, Stuart. I enjoyed being on your show.
That's a wrap for this episode. So I want to thank Noel Massie for being my guest, and thank our production team for putting the show together as always. And of course, thank you for listening or watching. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like our podcast and our YouTube channel to get regular updates on future shows. And even though it's the off season, I will quote one of my favorite hockey broadcasters and say, "The pleasure was all ours."
At Rudner Law, we want people to treat their employment relationships as legal relationships and make informed decisions rather than assumptions. Keep up to date on Canadian employment law issues by following us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, liking our Facebook page, subscribing to our YouTube channel, and signing up for our newsletter. Past episodes can be found on YouTube, on our website, and archived on Facebook, And if you like our page or subscribe to our channel, you will receive notifications when the episodes are live. As we always say, none of that replaces legal advice tailored to your specific circumstances. If you think you might need an employment lawyer, you probably do. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us.